Hi, friends. This is Emily Francis. I hope you're doing well. I am here to offer you a read aloud of one book that I found. Um, I brought from my classroom thinking I know I want to share with my students. So the title is Unbroken. And of course, I thought about not only the title, but what's happening in the story would be something that my students will find interesting and I want to read it to see if you can learn from a read aloud. And it's written by Anne Schraff, published by Saddleback. And on the back of the book, it says David Morales, that's the main character. He spent 2 years in prison flying under the radar. Now he's determined to be a good citizen. And his luck turns when Carmen Ibarra's father offers him a job. David falls hard for a smart and pretty coworker. But can he ever tell her about his ugly past? Let's see what kind of trouble David Morales gets into. So it has 10 chapters. I'm going to read one chapter a day. So stay tuned. This is, of course, chapter 1. The day was sunny, but a cold wind was blowing. It had rained on Tuesday, and a sprinkle of snow lay in the distant mountain. David Morales wore just a sweater, and he wished he had worn a jacket. He stood with the deputy sheriff looking down the road. He expected to see a pickup truck appear any time. David had been living for this day for 2 years. And many times he thought this day would never come. But now he was terribly nervous. His stomach hurt. He felt as though he would never hear the chains that he'd worn on his wrist and legs 2 years ago. He could hear them even in his sleep. He felt as though he'd spent years on an alien planet. Now that he had returned to Earth, he felt like an alien. He wasn't sure what to say, how to act. He was almost afraid to leave prison's life. There it is, the sheriff nodded. He was a pleasant fellow, nicer than the other officers in prison. They all did their jobs with reasonable manners. They were dealing with convicts, not hotel guests. Some of the inmates had done lesser crimes than David, but many had done much worse. The men who ran the prison had to be tough. So, you got everything? The sheriff asked David, looking at his small duffel bag. Yes, sir. Thank you, David replied numbly. He stared at the pickup truck growing closer. The deputy shook hands with David. Then he said what always would say, good luck to you, man. I hope I never see you again. David managed a thin smile and responded, you won't. Paul Morales brought the pickup to a stop and jumped out. He grabbed his brother in a bear hug, and the brother embraced for a long time. Then Paul tossed the duffel bag into the truck. He nodded toward the deputy, who turned and headed back to the gate. Paul and David climbed into the cab. David on the passenger side. David's leg felt rubbery. He almost fell while getting in the cab. He pulled the door shut. Seatbelt, dude, Paul reminded him. Oh, yeah, David said, clicking around his waist. Yee-haw! Paul screamed as they drove away from the prison. David looked at his kid brother and thought he hadn't changed. Then Paul made a suggestion. Want to get something to eat? There's a diner down the road. Pancakes, sausage, nice hot coffee. I don't know if I could keep it down, David responded. Paul looked over and briefly clapped his hands out of his brother's shoulder. You'll be fine, he assured him. You're thin, hermano. You and me, we're the same height, and I think I got 15 pounds on you, at least. We gotta do something about that. David stared at the hills and the mountain in the distance. He looked at them during all the days, the weeks, and the months, and the years he was in prison. But they looked different now that he was free. They looked completely different, though he didn't know exactly how. As they drove, Davy vaguely remembered the landmarks. But the grocery store he used to go to was closed and burned up. There were no more gas stations on the corner where he remembered too. They pulled into the dinner lot, parked, and then walked in. They sat down in a booth and in the back. Paul ordered two big breakfasts and pancakes and sausage and bacon and lots of syrup and butter. You look like the deer in headlights, dude, Paul remarked. Yeah, David responded. I feel like that. He looked at the puffy light brown pancakes. He opened the syrup container and watched the golden river run over the melting pats of water. He realized he was hungry. He had never been so hungry in his adult life. He wolfed down the pancakes, the fat little brown sausages, and crispy bacon. He had to keep wiping his chin with the napkin. Paul laughed. Dude, you gotta brush up on that table manners. We're eating at a nice family on Sunday. What? David gasped. Who? What are you talking about? Ernesto Sandoval and his family? Paul replied. Remember me telling you about him when I came to visit you? Oh, yeah, your friend, David recalled, pinching another forkful of pancakes into his mouth. His father teaches at Chavez. But why would they? I mean, David wiped his chin again. That's who he is, David, Paul explained. There's not more decent human being in this planet than Arnie. On top of that, he's a fun guy. He has this other friend, Abel Raul Ruiz, a great guy too. These two are my best homies. Man, Abel's gonna cook carne asada for us. Let me tell you, the kid is still only a senior in Chavez, but he's a genius in the kitchen. My chick Carmen is coming too. You meet her. Paul, won't that be like awkward? David asked. I've spent the last 2 years talking to cons. What am I gonna say? What if they ask me what prison was like? Man, I'll freak. Don't worry, David, Paul assured him. It'll be cool. Ernie has these two little sisters, little muchachas, cutest little trolls you've ever saw. They'll be there too. Two little girls? David groaned. I'll probably scare the heck out of them. An ex convict? They'll hide under the table and cry. Paul laughed. Dude, would I get you into a bad situation? Paul leaned forward as he spoke to his brother. Listen up, hermano. You're all I got in the way of blood, and I am all you got. I got your back, David. Don't you ever forget that. Remember when we were kids and something we wound up the same foster homes? Didn't I always have your back? Even though I was younger? I'm a tough hombre, David. I'm not gonna let anything bad happen to you. They finished the breakfast and headed to Paul's apartment in Cardinal Street. As they got closer to Paul's place, David spoke. I hope you didn't go too much bother getting ready for me. Just a curtain will be fine in the dining room divider. I'll be fine sleeping in a bag. Believe me, after sleeping on a hard cot in prison, a sleeping bag's gonna feel like a real mattress. Nah, no problem, dude, Paul replied, grinning. What are you grinning about, man? David asked. Nothing, Paul responded, pulling into the apartment parking lot. I got a bigger apartment now, not the little one we used to have. The two young men went into the three steps that led into the downstairs apartment. David's eyes widening as they stepped inside. Nice, man. Hey, a bookcase for a room divider? Looking good, he marveled. Room on the left is yours, David. Paul nodded. Just stash your duffel bag. I brought some stuff for you to wear. Uh, just nothing much. Tees, jeans, socks, and shorts. They're in the chest drawers. Got that shampoo you used to like, the shaving cream, and other stuff. Paul, David gasped. The bed! Oh, it looks so nice. Like a new or something. And the chest drawers? You didn't go and spend your hard earned dough? It was all free, man, Paul explained, still grinning. You know my chick, Carmen? Well, her sister married to a rich dude named Ivan Redondo, and I think you know him. Didn't Ivan teach your Bible class in prison? He's one of our homies now. His folks are rolling in dough, and I just borrow some furniture they never use. He's high on you, man. He's kind of geeky, but he's my friend now. They stood in silence for a moment. David was overwhelmed. Paul remarked, Me and my homies fixed up the place. Nice job, huh? Muy bien, hermano. Muy bien, was all David could say. David sat down on the chair next to the bed. He put his hand on his face and covered his eyes. Bro, I don't deserve any of this. I screwed up so bad. You were just a kid finishing up high school. You were working like a dog at a burger stand and staying out of trouble. I was your big brother. I should have been looking after you. But then me, my lousy homies, started boosting up laptops and cell phones. I wanted stuff I couldn't afford. I was a selfish creep, hanging out with scums and dating no good chicks who just wanted jewelry and hanging around their necks and sticks in their ears. David's voice was filled with regret and sorrow. He sighed deeply and continued speaking. I didn't care about you. I didn't care about you and what you had come to my trial and sit there. You had to watch your rotten brother convicted and sent to prison. I didn't care how much that ripped your gut, Paul. I don't deserve any of this. You could just slip me a 20 and tell me to get lost and make my own way. That'd be the only fair thing you could do. That'd be just what I deserve. That's all true, dude, Paul agreed. But what's done is done. And I love you, man. You're my brother. Long as we're on the subject, I want you to listen up now. Hermano, you screw up again, and you'll think you died and went to hell. I swear that. I'm gonna be so on you. You'll probably have fond memories of the worst day you ever spent in prison. In the meantime, get out those ratty clothes and pick something up from the closet. We got some night tees in there. Crew neck, sweaters, good jeans. When we go to Sandoval's, we want to look good. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Uh-oh, Paul sighed with a grin. Peace and quiet is over. My babe Carmen is here. I was wondering how long she would stay away once she knew you were home. Paul swung open the door. Come in, doll, he said. Once she planted a kiss on Paul, Carmen looked beyond him. Hi, David, she cried. She sprang across the room and gave David a big hug. You look better already, she said. You got more color on your face. But you're so skinny. You've got to eat a lot. She clasped his shoulders and both his hands and held him his arm length. Oh, David, she remarked, you look lots better than Paul and I visited you the last time we went. She's off and running, Paul declared. Carmen ignored Paul. Oh, David, isn't it wonderful that what the boy did around here on Saturday? Your little room is so cozy. And is that a cool bed or what? That Ivan is such a sweetheart. My sister's so lucky to have a guy like him, 'cause she's kind of a pill. I went shopping with Paul, and we got all the shampoo, toothpaste, soap, and stuff. Carmen stepped back and looked at David up and down. Oh, David, you look just like Paul, only thinner. You guys are both so handsome. Wait a minute. Your eyes are a little lighter blue than Paul, aren't they? Prism pallor, Paul said driftily. His eyes faded too. Carmen pushed Paul. Oh, you? He does that all the time, David. He's just outrageous. You just, you know what he said the other day? He said if I got interested in another guy, he'd take out to the desert and take him to an anthill and stake him to an anthill. I would too, Paul affirmed. Like I never would dump Paul. Like I would ever dump Paul, Carmen responded. I'd just be crazy in love with him so much. But what can I do? Anyway, David, I'll be coming to the Sandovals with you and Paul on Sunday. I told Papa, and his mustache jumped several times. David, are you going to love those Sandovals so much? Luis Sandoval, his father, the teacher's history at Chavez, and his niece, and he's the nicest man. He does so much for kids. And Maria Sandoval, the mom, she's an angel. Then there's Abuela Lena, the cutest little old granny you'll ever meet. And Ernesto, two darlings little sisters, and little Alfredo. Alfredo, he's the dude who's gonna give us trouble, Paul stated grimly. Carmen gave Paul another shove. Don't listen to him, David, she commanded. Alfredo's a baby, and he's so cute. He's got those big dark eyes. He looked like a toy. And Abel Ruiz is doing the cooking. He's such a sweet guy. David, you'll love him. And you're going to love whatever he cooks. Paul looked at his brother. She never stops talking, he remarks with a smirk on his face. Sometimes she amazes me. She doesn't even have to breathe. If I didn't love the chick so much, I would have stuffed a suck in her mouth a month ago. David smiled and laughed a little. You're really pretty, Carmen, he nodded. Oh, thank you, sir. Carmen made a little courtesy. You know how Paul and I met? We were at Hortensia's taco place. I was driving the red convertible my father gave me for my birthday. Anyway, me and my stuffy sister, Lourdes, were going in. Suddenly, somebody yells, Hey, homies, check out that red hot convertible. Then he goes, Whoa, check out the chick behind the wheel. She's even hotter. And look at there's just tough looking dudes in hoodies and they got tattoos. And I'm not used to stuff like that. I look at this dude and I don't even know who's yelling and who's being so rude at me. Then I almost drop dead because he is so handsome. And the hair is standing up on the nape on my neck. And Paul grabbed Carmen and kissed her on the mouth, shouting her in mid sentence. Paul turned and grinned at David. It's the only way to stop her, he declared. David actually laughed. He suddenly felt better about Sunday. Now that he knew Carmen would be there, he made a mental note to sit close to her. As long as Carmen was talking, and she would be talking, maybe the others wouldn't notice him too much. That night, David Morales couldn't quite believe where he was. He was laying in a nice, unbelievable, comfortable bed, not a cot. The apartment had doors and windows, not bars. He was watching a movie on his own tiny television set, not staring at concrete ceiling. He heard traffic sounds outside, not clanking steel doors or yelling and cursing. David wore earphones so the sound of the movie wouldn't disturb Paul. His brother had gotten up early to get to work managing an electronics store and then take classes at the community college. David used to like crime dramas, but now he couldn't stand them. He didn't want to see anything that showed crime of cops chasing suspects down dark streets. He did like to watch reality singing competitions. He loved to watch dancing shows too. He enjoyed funny movies with Adam Sandler and Will Ferrell. The movies were silly and brightening and happy. They comforted him and helped to drive away the demons and the sickening memories of bars. He liked the simple foolishness of the storylines. Their silliness helped him relax more than anything else. When he got too tired of watching movies anymore, he drifted off into the best sleep he had ever enjoyed in more than 2 years. In prison, David had never slept through the night. Men were shouting, coughing, rattling things. Guards were patrolling the corridors, checking steel doors. Some nights, sleeps will be broken by grief, brutal incidents with curses and screams. With the light out now, David could hear very different sounds in the dark. The snoring hisses of his sleeping brother, the long quivering screeches of an owl that lived in a gangling Washington palm tree in front of his apartment. In the morning, Paul brewed coffee and poured raisin bran with milk. I better go looking for a job, David declared. I want to get something as quick as possible and pay my own way. You've done more than enough, Paul. That won't be easy, man, Paul remarked. A lot of guys out there with no rap sheet looking for work. Remember the furniture store I worked at when you were going to Chavez? David asked. I did pretty good there. Mr. Hawthorne, do you think he's still there? He was a good guy. You see him lately? Yeah, I see him sometimes, Paul replied. He had a funny look on his face. I worked hard there, David recalled. Mr. Hawthorne told me I was the best kid he ever had. I started there when I was 18. I think you were living with Bailey's then. That was before your age out of system. Yeah, Paul recollected bitterly. Old Lady Bailey, she made me do the laundry, and her old man's socks weren't white enough. She slapped me across the face. I was sure glad to get out of the foster care system. The two young men silently stared at each other. Both were smirking. Man, David finally said, that system was like a to break kids. It should have almost broke me, but it didn't, Paul asserted. Then he held up his hand for a fist bump. Unbroken, he declared. David's face broke into a broad smile. Unbroken, he responded, with a fist bump to his brother. David thought that he'll return to find a job. I worked for Mr. Hawthorne for about 3.5 years. David was thinking out loud. I think I'll go down there and see if he'd give me a chance. I never stole anything from him. I got in trouble after I quit there. I guess he probably knows that what happened to me. I mean, it was all over the barrio. But he's gonna remember I was always on the up and up within him. David looked at his brother. I bet he'd give me a try, Paul. I always liked Mr. Hawthorne. Man, I really worked hard. It's worth a try, don't you think, Paul? Well, no harm in trying, Paul responded. But don't get your hopes up too high. People change. Mr. Hawthorne isn't doing as well as he was a couple of years ago. All the business up in Washington's are having trouble. But I'll drop you off on my way to work, and you can talk to him. Thanks, Paul. I got a good feeling about this, David said. If there's anything or anybody who'll be willing to give me a break, I think it'll be Mr. Hawthorne. He's got to remember how hard I worked there, you know. If it doesn't work out, it's close enough for you to walk home, David, Paul told him. As they left in the pickup, Paul advised his brother, listen up, hermano. This isn't going to be any walk in the park. If you can't find anything, I can help you. Paul, I never want you to get in where you work, David objected. That's a classy place with expensive electronics, just like the stuff I stole. I wouldn't want to work in a place like that. And I certainly wouldn't want to damage your reputation where you got a good job and even asking for work. No, I wasn't thinking about my place, Paul replied. They're not hiring anyhow. I got another little ace in the hole. So at the end of the week, if you're shaking a lot of trees and got no coconuts, we'll talk. It'll be in the restaurant business. Not a great job, but a place to start. So don't get discouraged. It's gonna be okay, man. I'm pretty sure Mr. Hawthorne will want me, David assured him. He knows what a good worker I was. Man, I'll break my neck for him. But thanks, Paul, for everything. The good thing about this job I'm thinking of, man, Paul added, the owner of the place knows all about you. He'd hire you anyway. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, okay? Paul pulled up to the Hawthorne's furniture store and David got out. The boys high-fived each other and Paul declared, "It's gonna be okay, hermano. Trust me." And that is chapter 1. Wait for chapter 2 next time. Bye.